Hey there, I'm Reese. Artfight is around the corner, and everyone is collectively scrambling to get their OC refs updated and uploaded before the event begins. In the background here, I've got speed paints of a handful of OCs to look at while I yap at you. Some of them aren't featured in my Artfight profile, but I wanted to share some of their processes in this batch too. I use the Clip Studio time-lapse feature to capture these, so they end up rather short in length compared to what would probably end up being the case with a more traditionally recorded speed paint. Now, if you've clicked on this video thinking, what the hell is Artfight? Fear not, I've got some answers for you before I start rambling too hard on how I navigate the event. And if you already know what Artfight is and are just curious about the tracker, here is a timestamp of where I talk about that, or you can just skip right to the sheet's link in the description. Artfight is an art gifting event/competition that occurs for the duration of July every year since 2007 on its own hosted website since 2016. The concept is that participants are sorted into or choose one of two teams with rotating themes each year. These themes are revealed a couple of weeks before the event, with some fun team cards provided from the Artfight team to post on socials or just directly to your profile on the site. These allow you to have essentially a business card for what you enjoy drawing, as well as giving your chosen OCs the spotlight. I personally don't usually end up filling one out, but it's always fun to see everyone else's on the timeline. These themes are purely for fun and aesthetics. You don't have to have OCs that fit the theme to participate. Some people really like leaning into the theming side of things with stuff like themed OCs or profile customization. Anyone can use BB code to customize, but CSS is limited to donators only. Once the event begins, drawing, or otherwise creating a piece of art of someone of the opposing team's character is considered an attack, and garners points for the attacker's team. The person receiving the art is then considered the defender, with the piece as a defense. Each attack gains points depending on various factors. Things like how many characters are included, how detailed the background is, how much of the character is drawn, if it's a sketch or lined or colored or even animated. Plus, plenty of clarifications on what exactly the rules mean, with tons of examples accompanying them. The more polished the work is, the more points you'll earn with your attack. If the attack is towards a member of the same team, though, it is considered a friendly fire and no points are earned. If a defender chooses to attack their attacker back, they can create what's called a revenge chain. This is a mechanic that starts a multiplier that will apply to that piece and any future pieces shared between those two individuals. In my opinion, it can encourage more loose and fun occurrences. Sure, you can copy down every detail off of a ref sheet, but did you know they always have to hold their stomach when they laugh and it's adorable? Now you do, and you have a fun little drawing of it. Some of the most fun you can have, not just as an artist, but in general, just to shoot the shit sometimes. You gotta goof around, get a little silly with it. On that note, the biggest aspects of Artfight are undoubtedly that it's built upon friendship and sportsmanship. It is, and I want to make sure I emphasize this, an art gifting event, not a trading event. Yes, revenge streaks are an incentive, but some people, myself included, like to try and draw a variety of characters rather than chaining up. And I'm sure that there's plenty of only finish one attack per yearers like me out there, and I've still ended up with at least a defense or two every year I've participated. Some have been from friends of friends, but most have been pretty random. Go into it for the fun of drawing and interacting with others. Additionally, all entries during the event must be made during the event. This rule also includes the use of things like bases specifically for attacks. They are still allowed in character profiles, just not as an attack that can get points. Some people choose to attack their friends, some people pick one or two people to lovingly antagonize, and I myself just smash that random character button until I see a cool character on the other team. The hardest part is definitely keeping track of it all, especially considering how spaced out their bookmark system is. Sure, they've got the number ordering in it, which is nice and all, but my main problem is how many characters I can see at a time. So, this year, as part of my Artfight prepping, I have created a spreadsheet to help keep me organized. The event hasn't even started yet, and this has already made me feel like it's going to be way more manageable than in past years. I wanted to make sure I had both the characters and the artist name, because one of my personal shortcomings is always putting one or the other on things, but never consistent as to which one. Shout out to people who I have ref saves of your character, but I have no idea of what your ad is because I only saved your OC's name. Then I wanted to be able to track progress, so I added a handful of stages into the chart with checkboxes. None of these are required, obviously. Any art is still an attack. That's why I added finished as its own category instead of including it with rendering or something, as I'll most likely be sending some sketches out this year too to try and break my one-a-year streak. Also, thumbnails aren't required, but they can be a really good way to not only get warmed up with drawing in general, but get yourself more acquainted with your subject. I find this especially helpful for characters with a lot or large elements. It can be hard to think about the pose itself and the way it plays with the shapes of the character when you're thinking too closely detailed. Shrinking it down makes you force yourself to essentially take a step back from your canvas. Sometimes you can realize that really cool pose you thought of doesn't end up working out too great, but there was another one you were a little less sure of that ends up working wonders. Finding that out within a few minutes rather than an hour plus into fiddling with a wonky sketch is not only a time saver, but a sanity saver. I made a little tips / my personal preferences with the chart and an example of the sheet filled out using my bookmarks here. I'm not super well versed in Excel or Google Sheets, so it took me a bit of trial and error to sort things out to look nice and the way that I wanted it to. I really wanted to make sure I added instructions for the color of the chart, since I know that I like to just make things my favorite color. I'll provide a link down in the description if you'd like to use this chart yourself too. Feel free to change, move, or remove columns as you like. If you don't shade or render, then no need to have that column in there. I ended up consolidating the artist and character, name, and link sections for my personal tracker, since I realized doing it all as a hyperlink would save a bunch more space. Now that we've gone over the process of the event itself and a little bit of sorting, let me get into the meat of the prep. We all know and love, dread, character refs. Okay, now look at me. I know I don't have a menacing face, but look at me. You don't need to redraw your refs. Fight the urge. I know having old art can feel icky or taboo or not good enough or whatever, but hush that little brain gremlin and listen here. The most recent sheet drawn in this video was a full year ago, because that's when I made the character, and my favorite ones are all from back in 2022. It can be tempting to get things cleaned up and remade, and it's fine to tune up a little. I know I've been adding additional images to my characters, but be wary of a full overhaul burning you out before the event even starts. If you have more recent sketches of characters, you could add those as supplements to your original ref sheets too. You don't need a crazy, polished ref sheet, just something where they can see your character clearly. Once I decided I'm not going to line my ref sheets anymore, these are all cleaned up sketches, they became so much less daunting to approach. I don't think full body refs are required, however, in my experience, it definitely makes me more inclined to draw a character if I can see all of them. If you're not super comfortable drawing full body, no worries. For character profiles at least, they do allow things like bases and dollmaker type images, so long as they are properly credited. I would suggest, if that's the route you're going, to add at least a bust drawing or a decent amount of information on the character in the description. That way, in the former, people can get a better grasp at how you see your character, as well as what your art style looks like. And with the latter, they can get at least a little more personality and vibe to breathe into their drawing than just going off of a dollmaker or base. That being said, if you want to include their full backstory or lore, I would suggest employing the spoiler function included in BB code. Put a small summary or bullet-pointed list thing above it, and provide it as an optional read more. This way people have a quick reference, you get to put all your OC's juicy lore, and people don't get bombarded with the wall of text they might not have been expecting. Another thing you can keep in mind when setting up and sorting your characters is your choice of character thumbnail. Some people enjoy making themed thumbnails every year, some like making a designated thumbnail per character, some use a zoom of their ref, and some just let the autocrop do its job. I tend to be of the let autocrop do what it do team, but I have made some thumbnails for my top few OCs. Artfight's thumbnails are limited to being 200 pixels by 200 pixels, so you will have to have a file of that size ready to upload as a thumbnail for the image. I only ended up making 2 solely for the purpose of being a thumbnail. Those ones are in this video at the end as the last 2 speed paints. The others are all images that I cropped down or scaled down to the size requirement because I thought they would work better than seeing my character's torso as a preview. So, you've got your character refs all sorted, but they're all just kinda randomly strewn about. What if you have multiple characters in the same universe that you want to keep displayed together? Or the number one love of your life OC that you want art of way more than the others? Some people choose to mark their characters with a star or other symbol system, but the site does offer a built-in sort. This is where those thumbnails come in handy, because when viewing your profile, only the first 6 OCs in your list will be shown. The rest will need to be found by navigating to the character page itself. They're sorted with the same number system on the character page as well, but I personally only actually sort my top 6. The highest number will be the OC displayed furthest left, and then it just goes along the list of them. You can also have multiple characters share a number. Additionally, if you end up not really wanting to include a character on your profile anymore, you can simply hide them. Everything connected to them on the site will stay, they just won't be visible on your profile. I've actually done this with a couple of mine for this year. Old OCs that don't have much lore or whatnot, but I don't want to entirely delete them. There's also an archive feature with characters as well. This does delete all uploaded images for the character's profile, as well as the description and permissions. The basic information of the character, things like name, credits, comments, are still saved, and you can still view any attacks made on that character. Once you've got your characters all sorted out, you can start collecting some victims. Generally, the best time to do this is in the week or so leading up to the event, which is also the best time to do most of your upkeep, realistically. Once the event begins, the site is prone to crashing during the first day or so. For this reason, it's generally a good idea to save your references locally to your computer, or phone, or tablet, so you're able to begin your attacks on time. You can choose whoever your heart desires to attack. Some people gravitate towards making a bunch of art for friends, some use it to make art for their favorite artists, and some use it to experiment with style or subject, and some will search for characters that fit their preferred aesthetics. Whether you play for points or simply for characters doesn't matter too much, so long as you're having a good time. Now, I just kind of want to list off a couple of quick and dirty art fight tips or things that I tend to think about art fight that I might not have mentioned yet. I know that I mentioned earlier the aspect of burning out, but only really in relation to making new character sheets and such. But I also do want to touch on that it is very important to pace yourself through the event. I know that technically the goal is to get points for your team, draw a bunch, draw for other people, yes. But you should not be burning yourself out doing so. You don't have to do 20 drawings to successfully participate in art fight. You don't have to force yourself to, oh god, I have to do this because it's for art fight. It's okay to take a break. You don't have to draw every week. If you draw, maybe 2 in the first week or 1 in the first week, and then you take a break for a couple weeks, but maybe you come back at the end, or maybe that one that you made at the start is all you really ended up having energy for. That's okay. You still participated, and as long as you had fun, that's what matters. And if you end up starting something and not having the energy to finish it, there are a couple of options that you have, actually. You can either submit the partially finished as its own attack, submitting it as, say, a sketch rather than a fully colored piece as you had originally envisioned, or if you would rather take the time to sit down and work at the piece and have something you're really happy with, You can complete it after the event and then send it to the artist directly. I've had this happen at least once, where I logged into Artfight to start setting up my new characters, and I found a private message of someone that had drawn something outside of Artfight but still wanted me to be able to see it, and I thought that was really, really sweet. Though I would suggest maybe sending it to them directly on if they have any socials linked on their profile, since most people don't tend to check Artfight outside of Artfight season, so they might not see it for quite a while. But I think that is probably about all I have to say on Artfight for the moment. If you've made it this far in the video, I'm going to assume that you at least somewhat enjoy hearing the sound of my voice, so I'm going to change topic a little bit here and talk a bit more about me and this channel going forward. If you may have noticed that this is the first video in a few years on this channel, though I would like to try and be a little more consistent with it going forward, and this is my first voiceover style video, and I would very much enjoy doing more things like this over speed paints and stuff, maybe with more specific topics, or just talking about my characters in general might be fun, especially as these last three characters in this video here, Sylvana, Nuerin, and Camille, are all part of the same universe, which I am still working slowly but surely on the lore for. They're characters that I've had since I was about 12, and I've kind of retconned the original main character of the story, so I have to rework them a bit, but I do really like them and would like to make some more stuff with them in the future. And we are getting up to the end of the speed paints that I have prepared for y'all today, so I want to thank you guys all so much for sticking around till the end, and if you have any thoughts or types of things that you would like to see from me, you can go ahead and let me know, and I hope that I will see you again when I next upload.